The billionaire lay pale and trembling on the hospital bed, his breath shallow, his eyes glassy with pain. Around him, 20 of the city's most respected doctors moved frantically, each one searching for an answer. Machines beeped, nurses scurried, but still, nothing worked. Every injection, every test, every attempt to stabilize him seemed to fail. His body rejected their efforts, leaving him weaker by the minute. The room was thick with panic. It was supposed to be a place of healing, yet it felt more like a battlefield where the man was losing. Among the chaos, no one noticed the woman in the corner of the room. Emily Carter, a plus-size cleaning lady in her 30s, clutched her mop like a lifeline. She wasn't supposed to be here during an emergency, but she had been caught in the middle of her shift when the team rushed in. Everyone treated her as invisible, as they usually did. Her body, her size, her simple uniform, none of it demanded respect in this world of white coats and power. But Emily's eyes were sharp, and her ears even sharper. She had always been observant, watching people closely in a way most ignored. While scrubbing floors and dusting shelves, she picked up details, conversations, routines, even medical terms. Over the years, she had gathered fragments of knowledge, storing them quietly in her mind. No one believed she could understand the things doctors spoke about, but she did. And now, as she listened to the frantic commands being thrown around, something didn't sit right. Her instincts prickled. She could feel it. They were missing something. Dr. Reynolds, the lead physician, barked orders. "Increase the dosage. Prepare another injection." His voice was laced with desperation. A nurse rushed forward, but Emily's gaze caught on the billionaire's face. His lips moved faintly, like he was trying to speak. Nobody noticed except her. She stepped closer, her mop still in hand, her heart hammering. She wanted to say something, but who would listen? A cleaner? A plus-sized woman with no degree? The thought made her hesitate. Yet, when she saw his eyes flick toward her, pleading silently, she knew she couldn't stay quiet. "Stop!" Emily's voice cut through the chaos before she could think. The room froze. 20 heads turned toward her, eyes narrowing. The lead doctor frowned deeply. "What are you doing here? Get out!" His words dripped with irritation, as though her presence was an insult. Emily's cheeks flushed, but she stood her ground. "You're hurting him," she said, her voice shaking but steady enough. The billionaire groaned softly, as if agreeing. The silence in the room thickened. How dare a cleaner interrupt? "Miss, this is no place for you." Dr. Reynolds snapped, waving her toward the door. "Go back to your duties." A few of the nurses stifled chuckles, their eyes darting over Emily's round figure with disdain. She felt the familiar sting of humiliation, the same looks she had endured all her life, the ones that said she was too fat, too ordinary, too unimportant. But she clenched her fists, refusing to shrink away this time. "I heard him," she insisted. "He's trying to tell you something. You're not listening." The billionaire stirred again, his hand twitching weakly. Emily hurried closer, ignoring the protests. She leaned over, her soft frame blocking some of the light as she bent near his lips. His breath was faint, but she caught the word allergy. Her eyes widened. "He's allergic," she whispered. Suddenly, puzzle pieces snapped into place. She had overheard weeks ago, while cleaning the executive lounge, a conversation about the billionaire's rare allergy to a specific drug, the very drug they had just injected into him. Her stomach dropped. "You're giving him what's killing him," she said aloud. The doctors froze. Dr. Reynolds blinked, his authority shaken. "That's impossible." His chart Emily cut him off, her voice rising with urgency. "Check his medical records. You'll see it. He's allergic to cephalosporins. That's what you gave him, isn't it?" Gasps rippled through the room. One of the younger doctors quickly pulled up the file, scrolling through the digital chart. His face drained of color. "She's right," he whispered. "It's here. Severe allergy." The room fell into stunned silence. All eyes turned back to Emily. Emily's heart pounded, her palms slick with sweat. She had just contradicted 20 doctors and been right. "Get the antidote," she urged. her voice breaking. Before it's too late. For a long moment, no one moved. Then Dr. Reynolds snapped into action, barking new orders. Nurses scrambled, drawing up the proper medication. Emily stepped back, her chest heaving, as the injection was administered. For a breathless moment, nothing happened. Then, slowly, the billionaire's breathing steadied, his face regaining a hint of color. Relief washed over the room like a tide. The silence broke with murmurs. How did she know? Who is she? Emily felt the weight of every stare. Some were astonished, some suspicious, some resentful. She shifted uncomfortably, wishing she could melt into the floor. But she couldn't regret speaking. If she hadn't, the man would be dead. For once, her size, her uniform, her place in the world hadn't mattered. What mattered was that she had seen what others hadn't. She had listened when no one else did. Dr. Reynolds turned toward her, his face pale and drawn. How, he began, then stopped. He clearly struggled with the idea of giving credit to a cleaner. You saved him, he admitted reluctantly. His pride fought with the truth, but the truth was undeniable. Emily's eyes welled with tears she refused to let fall. She simply nodded, gripping the handle of her mop like an anchor. Around her, whispers swirled, but she kept her chin high. For the first time in years, she didn't feel invisible. As the billionaire stabilized, the chaos ebbed. Nurses adjusted monitors, doctors rechecked his vitals, but the urgency was gone. Emily lingered by the wall, unsure whether to stay or go. She had overstepped, broken rules, risked everything, yet it had been worth it. Still, doubt gnawed at her. Would she be punished for speaking out? Would the hospital dismiss her for daring to act above her station? Her stomach churned at the thought. She had no one to defend her. Minutes later, the billionaire stirred again, his eyes fluttering open. He looked around weakly, then his gaze landed on Emily. A faint smile touched his lips. He lifted his hand slightly, and though his voice was raspy, the word was clear. Her. Everyone turned to look at Emily. The billionaire's eyes never left her. She saved me, he whispered. The doctors exchanged uneasy glances, their authority shaken further. Emily's throat tightened, emotion threatening to overwhelm her. To be acknowledged, even faintly, by him, it was more than she had ever expected. The billionaire's son, who had been standing anxiously near the door, stepped forward. His expression was a mix of relief and confusion. Who are you? He asked Emily softly. She hesitated, then answered simply, I'm just a cleaner. The words felt small, unworthy of what she had done. But the son shook his head. Not anymore. You saved my father when none of them could. His voice carried conviction, and for the first time, Emily felt that maybe her life was about to change. The doctors tried to regain control, speaking in hushed tones, offering explanations and excuses. Emily caught fragments, oversight, misfiled record, unexpected reaction. But no one could erase what had happened. She had seen what they missed. She had acted when they hesitated. And the billionaire himself had confirmed it. Her heart pounded with a strange mixture of fear and pride. She had stepped into the light for once, and it terrified her. But it also thrilled her. Dr. Reynolds approached her again, his face tight. Don't think this excuses your behavior, he said quietly. You interfered in a medical emergency. Emily swallowed, her cheeks burning. If I hadn't, he'd be dead. The doctor's jaw clenched, but he couldn't argue. His silence spoke louder than his words. Emily turned her gaze back to the billionaire, still weak but stable, and felt strength return to her. She hadn't acted for recognition. She had acted because it was right. The son came closer, his eyes earnest. Stay, he told her. Emily blinked. Stay? But you belong here, he said firmly. My father trusts you, I trust you. Please, don't go. Emily's chest tightened. No one had ever spoken to her like that before. She had always been the one overlooked, dismissed, pushed aside. Now, suddenly, she was being asked to remain, to be part of something bigger. Tears stung her eyes, but she nodded faintly. I'll stay. The nurses exchanged uneasy looks. Some seemed almost resentful, as if her presence shamed them, but others glanced at her with quiet respect. Emily could feel the shift in the air, the beginning of something new. She wasn't sure what it meant yet, but she knew one thing. She had stepped into a world that had never wanted her, and she had proven she belonged. Her size, her uniform, her role, none of it mattered anymore. What mattered was her courage. As the night wore on, Emily sat quietly in the corner, watching over the billionaire as he slept. The doctors rotated in and out, whispering to each other, but Emily remained. She couldn't explain it, but she felt a strange connection now, as though fate had tied her to this man in some invisible way. She thought of all the nights she had gone unnoticed, all the times people had mocked or dismissed her. Tonight had changed everything. When dawn broke, the first rays of sunlight spilling into the hospital, Emily still sat there, her mop resting against the wall. She had cleaned these halls for years, invisible, ignored, but now people looked at her differently. Some with awe, some with resentment, but no longer with indifference. She had saved a life when 20 doctors couldn't, and though fear and doubt still lingered in her heart, she knew this was only the beginning of a story that would change her forever. Emily Carter had never been looked at the way people looked at her that morning. As the billionaire slept soundly for the first time in days, nurses and doctors kept stealing glances at her. Some were filled with admiration, others with resentment, but none with indifference. For years, she had scrubbed floors and emptied trash cans without anyone even remembering her name. Now, every whisper seemed to circle back to her. That's her, the cleaner who saved him. The words felt surreal, like a dream she might wake from. The billionaire's son, Michael, returned to the room just after sunrise. His sharp suit looked rumpled from a sleepless night, but his eyes shone with gratitude. Emily, he said warmly, thank you again. Without you, my father wouldn't be here. She blushed, shifting awkwardly in her chair. Compliments never sat easily with her. I only said what I knew, she murmured. Michael shook his head. You saw what they didn't. That's not just luck, that's instinct. His words lingered in her mind, both comforting and terrifying. As hours passed, news of the billionaire's near death spread through the hospital. By afternoon, reporters gathered outside, hungry for a story. Hospital staff grew tense, worried about reputations and lawsuits. Dr. Reynolds, the lead physician, cornered Emily in the hallway. His tone was clipped. You got lucky last night. Don't think this makes you a doctor. Emily met his glare, her round shoulders straightening. I never said I was. I just didn't want him to die. The doctor's lips pressed into a thin line. He walked away without replying, but the bitterness in his eyes was clear. Despite the hostility, Emily remained by the billionaire's side. Michael insisted she stay, even arranging a chair and meals for her in the room. Nurses grumbled, but none dared challenge his decision. Late that evening, when the billionaire stirred awake, his first word was her name, Emily. His voice was faint, but his eyes glistened with recognition. Tears stung her eyes. She leaned closer. You are safe, she whispered. You are going to be all right. For a woman who had lived invisible, those words carried more weight than she could bear. Over the next few days, Emily became an unlikely fixture in the hospital room. She spoke softly to the billionaire, kept him company when his son stepped out, and even read aloud when he was too weak to talk. Slowly, his strength returned. But outside that room, whispers grew louder. She doesn't belong here. Why is a cleaner sitting at his bedside? Emily heard them, each word like a stone against her chest. Yet, she stayed. Not because she wanted recognition, but because she couldn't imagine walking away now. One afternoon, a nurse entered with medication. Emily's instincts prickled again. She glanced at the label, the memory of that night flashing through her mind. Wait, she said sharply. The nurse frowned. Excuse me? Emily's heart raced. That dosage is too high for him right now. The nurse rolled her eyes. "You're not qualified," Michael, who had just entered, cut her off. "Check it." Reluctantly, the nurse confirmed the dosage. Emily was right. Again, Michael's gaze softened with admiration, while the nurse flushed crimson with embarrassment. Word of the incident spread quickly. This time, the whispers weren't just skeptical, they were fearful. How does she know all this? Is she pretending to be a doctor? Emily wanted to shrink, to hide, but Michael reassured her. "Don't listen to them. You've saved him twice now." His faith in her steadied her, though she knew resentment was brewing all around. People didn't like their pride being wounded, and she was a walking reminder of their mistakes. 2 days later, Michael invited Emily to join him for coffee in the hospital cafeteria. She hesitated, aware of the curious eyes that would follow them, but agreed. They sat by the window, steam rising from their cups. "You've changed everything," he said quietly. "Not just for my father, but for me." Emily blinked, startled. "Me?" He nodded. "I've spent years surrounded by people who only tell me what I want to hear. You told the truth when it mattered most. You risk being laughed at, ignored, even punished. That takes courage." Emily stared into her coffee, her cheeks warming. "All my life, people saw me as less. Too big, too ordinary, too unimportant. I never thought my voice mattered." Michael leaned forward, his gaze steady. "It matters. You matter." His words struck her like a chord, one she had never known she carried inside. For a moment, the world outside the window blurred, and she saw herself differently, not as the cleaner in the background, but as someone with value, someone who had changed a life. But not everyone shared Michael's view. That evening, Dr. Reynolds confronted her again, this time in front of several nurses. "You're overstepping," he snapped. "Your presence is undermining this hospital. You should leave before you embarrass yourself further." The nurses smirked, their eyes darting over Emily's round figure with disdain. Shame burned in her chest. But before she could reply, Michael entered. His voice was ice. "If anyone here embarrassed themselves, it was you for nearly killing my father." Emily stays. The room fell silent. For once, Emily didn't feel small. The billionaire's recovery became the city's miracle story. Headlines praised the medical team, but whispers of the cleaner who saved him began to spread too. Reporters asked questions, and Michael didn't hesitate to tell them the truth. "She saved my father's life." Emily's name reached papers and broadcasts she had never imagined. She should have felt proud, but instead, she felt vulnerable. Fame wasn't what she wanted. All she had ever longed for was to be seen not by the world, but by the people right in front of her. As the billionaire grew stronger, he began to speak more often. One evening, he looked at Emily and said, "You reminded me what matters most." She tilted her head, confused. He smiled faintly. "Money, power, none of it saves you when death comes close. But kindness, courage, those are priceless. You have them both." Emily's throat tightened. She had always been mocked for her body, ignored for her job. Now, a man who had everything was praising her for the very qualities she thought invisible. The bond between Emily and Michael deepened. They shared long conversations, not just about the hospital, but about life, loneliness, loss, and the quiet courage it took to keep going. For the first time in years, Emily felt truly understood. But with that closeness came danger. Some staff whispered that she was manipulating him, that she was using his gratitude to climb above her station. The rumors hurt, but Emily refused to walk away. She had found something worth holding on to. One evening, as the hospital quieted, Emily stepped outside for fresh air. She leaned against the cool stone wall, staring at the city lights. For years, she had walked these streets unseen, just another body in the crowd. Now, everything had changed. She didn't know if she deserved it or if it would last, but for the first time, she dared to hope. Her size, once her greatest shame, now felt irrelevant compared to the strength she had discovered within. The next day, reporters camped outside the hospital, demanding to speak with her. Emily wanted to refuse, but Michael encouraged her. Tell your story, he said gently. You don't have to be anyone but yourself. She faced the cameras nervously, her voice trembling at first, but soon she found her rhythm. I'm not a doctor, she admitted. I'm not special. But I listened when no one else did. Sometimes that's all it takes to listen, to care. Her words spread far beyond the hospital, touching hearts she would never meet. But with attention came backlash. Online comments surfaced, cruel and cutting. She's just a cleaner. Look at her size, no wonder she has nothing better to do. Emily read them in silence, her heart heavy. For every kind word, there were 10 that reminded her of the cruelty of strangers. Yet, when she sat again by the billionaire's bed and he smiled at her, gratitude shining in his eyes, she knew the voices didn't matter. She mattered to him. She mattered to Michael. That was enough. 1 week later, the billionaire was discharged. Cameras flashed as he left the hospital, Michael at his side. Reporters shouted questions, but he stopped, raising his hand. Before anything else, he said firmly, you should know the truth. My life was saved not by 20 doctors, but by one woman's courage. Emily Carter. The crowd murmured, camera snapping. Emily stood frozen, her cheeks burning, but Michael guided her forward. For the first time, she stood in the light, not as a cleaner, not as invisible, but as a hero. Life after that day was never the same. Emily was offered interviews, praise, even opportunities she had never dreamed of. But she remained humble, still working, still living simply. What changed wasn't the world, it was her. She no longer saw herself as small or unworthy. She had faced the judgment of doctors, the disdain of strangers, and the cruelty of gossip. And she had won. Her bond with Michael only deepened with time. What had begun in a moment of crisis grew into trust, respect, and something warmer, something neither of them could ignore. Emily didn't know where it would lead, but she no longer doubted she deserved happiness. Her heart, once burdened by shame, now beat with quiet hope. And sometimes, late at night, Emily would whisper to herself, you saved him. Not as a boast, but as a reminder that she was not invisible, not lesser, not defined by size or uniform. She was a woman who had stepped forward when no one else dared. She was the one who had listened, the one who had cared, the one who had changed everything. And from that moment on, she knew her life would never be the same.